Hello and welcome. Andy here from Twisted Narrative, and we are about to descend into another Candela Obscura one shot. And as with the last one shot, I shall just quickly mention that it is set in my own sort of homebrew Victorian supernatural world setting. So, not the Candela Obscura that is in the quick start rules. But before we descend into that game, let us do introductions to our players, starting with you, as always, Fliss.
Oh, it's always me, Andy. Good evening. I'm Fliss, one of your regular players from your Twisted Narrative Discord channel, which I highly recommend to everybody. Really excited about trying yet another new system. And I have to say, I haven't told you this since last time, but I am really looking forward to running one of your Shadow Dark adventures that you've authored. So very excited. That's what you get me started on. So let's see what happens in this.
That is amazing. Another one of my passions there, and literally message me up if you've got any questions about it.
I
Because
will.
I'm happy to let you fly free, but if you do need any questions or anything, I'm there for you.
Direct access to the author.
Yeah,
What more can you ask?
shout out to Matt as well, a co-author, games designer. We work together, on it. But he'll be really pleased that someone is, because you throw this out to the ether and you just got no idea whether anybody's reading it or going to ever use it. But we have fun running it, designing it, and I very much would love some feedback once you do it.
Will do.
Exciting times. Now, move across to Kyle.
Greetings and salutations, one and all, as always. I'm Kyle, and looking forward to diving into yet another system. As usual, I'm finding it increasingly surprising how easy it is to learn all these different systems and how they just sort of fit in with each other.
Yeah, it is that easy. I think there's a psychological block that certain systems, not to name any, are sort of simple and everything else is complicated, where the reality is it's quite often the other way around. But hopefully you'll enjoy this. You play alongside me in Blades in the Dark, and this most definitely has been inspired by Blades in the Dark. There's no great secret there. But the more I play Candela Obscura, the more I can see very, very cool nuances that most definitely are different as well. And there's nothing wrong with being inspired by Blades in the Dark, because Blades in the Dark is an awesome game. Last but not least, Bryan.
Hello, I'm Bryan. You may remember me from such twisted narrative classics as The Laboratories of Dr. Payne, the martial arts tournament at the Temple of the Emerald Shell, or the slave uprising on Athos long ago.
It was a long time ago.
Yes, very long. Here to play Candela Obscura and poke about in those strange corners of the world and see what crawls out, and then put it in a jar and study it very carefully.
All right, Professor.
Well, I can't wait. It is a one shot. I'm going to do my very best to make it a one shot, because we've got something very interesting in 2 weeks' time, which I will tell everybody about if we actually come to a conclusion in this one and there's not a part two. So first and foremost, we have to get a little bit serious first. Content warning. This is a horror-based game which contains mature themes, including but not limited to body horror, graphic violence, blood, death, power imbalances, sexual themes, and social injustice. Please kind of watch at your own discretion, and remember you need to take a break from watching it, or if it's not your kind of thing, please tune into some of the other things that we do instead. I've spoken to all of our players about their lines and veils and their safety is paramount. It is a game after all, and we're all here to have fun. Creepy, scary, horrific fun, but fun all the same. So, if you are still watching, welcome. It is London, 1895. It is coming towards the end of the year. It is late November. People are beginning to get excited about the festivities. But when things happen, and the three of you have each individually had a summons to the house of Edgar Tremblay. Edgar Tremblay is your light keeper. He is the one that presides over you, that makes sure that you are okay and guide you on your assignments as best as he can. And getting a communique from him means that something is afoot. You arrive at his house, nothing particularly ostentatious, and you find yourself standing in his reception room. Edgar is a smallish man standing just over 5'7", and he has huge sideburns. He is most definitely grey before his time, though. His parlour looking as ever the same, for he is a medium and spiritualist himself, and paramount to his practice is the large circular table covered with the black velvet cloth, on which rests a beautifully decorated spirit board. He is pacing the room as ever he does when something is amiss. He pauses and looks at you one at a time. But before he speaks, let us get some character descriptions. We'll mix it up this time. We'll start off with Bryan. What does he see? Who are you? What would the other individuals know about you so far?
Well, as all of our characters know each other, you will all be familiar with Professor Albert Prinz. He studies at the Royal School of Mining, as a chemistry professor. That school would later become what we would know as Imperial College of London in a few decades' time and further on. He's a sort of average height man, but is in his mid-40s, but is definitely spreading out in middle age. Not fat, but definitely portly. He professes in his thick German accent, which I will spare our listeners my terrible attempt at. He enjoys English puddings a great deal. He wears a woolen suit with a waistcoat done up with brass buttons, and he's carrying a leather briefcase, a large, sort of almost luggage sort of thing, and he never goes out on an assignment without it. You will all be familiar with this piece of equipment. It holds his notes, his field laboratory, his little chemical concoctions.
A lovely description. His gaze moves across to you, Kyle. Who is your character, and what would people know about them? You're on mute. Or certainly your audio's not working. The spirits are interfering with our investigation already.
This any better?
Yes.
Okay, good. So tonight we're playing Reginald Flockton. He is a fairly stout young man. He with a strangely vacant look in his eyes. Or he's when here glancing at that cloth-covered table longingly. He has beginnings of a fairly bristly moustache. and wears a white vest with a nice cotton grey overcoat and smartish trousers. He's often seen bouncing around different jobs as he struggles to hold any particular one for any length of time due to his unusual episodes.
Excellent. I am intrigued about these episodes and shall be looking forward to finding out more. Last but not least, we move to Fliss. His gaze. What does he see and what does he know about you?
So he sees a tall, middle-aged blonde woman with short cropped hair, very patrician kind of features. She's got a mask kind of pushed up on her hair, so her hair's a bit askew. It's quite an interesting and ornate mask, and the party will be familiar with it. When she's out and about, not in this safe place, she will generally be wearing that mask, and the party will be aware that is to conceal her true identity, because her family is deeply disapproving of what she gets up to when she's out in this persona. So she's wearing tight-fitted, steampunk fantasy Victoriana kind of catsuit, basically. It's all very dark, but there's a splash of color. She wears a carnation on her lapel.
Very nice. And yes, this is not historic Victorian society. We have done away with the more unsightly sort of parts of it, and women are seen to be equally capable as the menfolk here in this setting. So Edgar kind of nods and he stutters a little. You know that it's not a speech impediment of sorts, but when he has been communing with the spirits, it takes a little out of him. Thank you, firstly, for coming so urgently, and I'm assuming you all have things that you would much rather be getting on with, but there is something terrible afoot. I have it on very good authority. I am not sure exactly what it is, hence having to assemble your circle. I was communing with the spirits, and my guide facilitated an introduction. One Cameron Mitchell, recently departed, a miner from across the border, Scotland. We managed to get scant amounts of information from him. He fell foul of something. His spirit is restless and he's unsettled. A great evil has tainted, almost corrupted his spirit, and he fights against it. The best I got is he died over the last week, and we need some investigators to go up to that area and find out what this great evil is. I am assured that this is no folly, no game. This is no trickster. This is a spirit corrupted in torment. He pauses. You can see that he's not all together. He's trying to assemble all of this in his head and sort of keep it there. So if there's any particular questions to try and help him sort of focus on what he's open to trying to answer as best as he can.
Well, with this being sort of Victorian era London, I'm going to walk over to Edgar and place my briefcase on the table and open it up and pull out a little glass vial. And it's got some little white pills in it. And I will offer him one of these sedatives. And again, it being Victorian London, there's probably all sorts of narcotics in it that they would just, casually dispense because it's London and Victorian London.
It was a different place then. He quite happily takes a sedative. This is showing absolutely the actual state he is in. He thanks you kindly for it as his trembles begin to abate somewhat.
Do you have any theories, Edgar?
Not really. He mentioned a location which is Bathgate. Again, I've not really had much time to investigate this. Much better that you experts do this. I have, though, through our organisation, procured you some first-class tickets to Edinburgh and a coach from there. There is no real, hotels or the like in this Bathgate. It is a small town, perhaps just a large village. The only real hostelry is a pub called the Green Tree. They have some rooms, and I have made efforts to secure you accommodation there for as long as you need it. And he kind of looks at you, Albert, perhaps even more well placed to understand these things. You know of geology, of mining, is that correct?
It is, well, I am more of a chemist than a geologist, but it is all at the School of Mining. We study all sorts of things, so I know a little bit here and there.
Splendid. So they are open. Take us, I say, as long as you need, but my fear is whatever this evil is, it will either move on or grow. So
We need to contain it.
yes, indeed. My library, as ever, is open to you, and you have access to some of the finest libraries and museums and establishments in the known world in this glorious city of ours.
Did Cameron leave anyone behind? Did he mention?
He has a wife.
Is she there in Bathgate or?
One assumes still.
Yeah.
He unfortunately cannot tell me anything since his demise. Only fragments of what occurred. As I say, his spirit is it is tainted, not malevolent. There is something that is gnawing away at it, and if we cannot put him to rest, he will not pass on at all.
No.
So, if there's nothing else that you particularly want to ask Edgar, he says he will leave you to your discussions and head upstairs. The medication you're giving him, Albert, most definitely beginning to take effect as he's a little bit woozy and needs to have a lie down.
Oh yeah, I make the good stuff.
Yeah. So you are alone in his parlour. You trust Edgar 100%. So there's no real discussion that the information that he's give you, he's tried to deceive you or anything else. So it is up to you to decide what your next moves is going to be, whether there's any kind of advanced research. Edinburgh is a prominent city, so you might be able to find some things out there. But from the sounds of it, when you move out to Bathgate itself, it's going to be very rural or rural industrial, and you're going to have no resources there whatsoever.
Not much information to go on, is it, gentlemen?
Well, it's as much as we ever get, is it not, mein Frau?
Have you ever come across anything like this in your readings, Albert? Or Reginald, have you experienced this when you've been in contact with the other side?
Oh, Edgar is always going on about spirits this and ghosts. It is all just etheric energies that we have not yet fully quantified and studied and labeled. That's what I'm here for.
Anything we can study before we go? Any books we could take?
Well, I believe that would be more our Reginald's area of expertise. The ground is thin in the landscape of spiritualist works, and the circle is well aware of Albert's particular attitudes towards the mystical sides of the world. He is very much wanting to poke at it and study it and label it and put it to use.
Catch it in a jar.
Can't label everything, Albert. But yes, I think we should take a chance to have a look again at this wonderful library of excerpts and see if there's any arcane texts that may relate to spirit corruption.
Okay. I mean, this sounds good to me. So you in effect are going to try and use his library. It's a very well appointed library, much greater than you would expect from a man of his status. He has undoubtedly been supported by the society, not just for his own interests, but for your interests and other circles he deals with. You make your way around it and you are very familiar with it. I'm not going to ask for any rolls here. There are two directions of thought at the moment. You've got a location and the fact that he was a miner. You've also got the fact that his spirit is being corrupted. You find that certainly in more recent times, this area of Scotland has downsized the mining aspect of coal, and it is moving more into shale and oil and chemical works now. So the term miner is perhaps a little bit outdated for such a recent death. That is certainly curious. In terms of the supernatural, it has a whole large amount of interest, and you spend a fair amount of time here. It does seem that it is very rare, but it has been known for spirits to become corrupted, and they go one of two ways. Either a tainted spirit can become twisted and try and, in effect, create hauntings, It doesn't sound like this is the case with this one, though, which is the other type of corruption, which means it is literally being rent apart. Such a thing will cause bleed, which is a corruption to the area it is happening in as well. And it's certainly something that you would actively want to stop. Such a thing of this bleed is a corruption of the natural state of the cosmos, really. If too much bleed escapes, uh, the world will cease to exist in the state that it is. Um, it is almost an unthinkable thing to happen, which is why you most definitely need to contain bleed. Bleed is a resonance from supernatural creatures that either unconsciously or deliberately want to cause this change, this balance. But yeah, without actually finding more of the details, you're not quite sure what is going on. There's even, I mean, you would have to go to like a library and have a look at some periodicals if you wanted to look into this person's death. You might be able to find some records of it. It's supposed to have been only over the last week. You might find out some information about the pits themselves in the local area from one of the bigger libraries in London as well.
I was interested in trying to find out a bit more about who this person was. Maybe a bit of genealogy or something. I don't know if that's going to be possible from this distance, but the newspaper sounds a good place to start.
I mean, if you want to do that, it might be best to do all of this in Edinburgh. There are record rooms, and it's much more likely that kind of information would be stored there. Edinburgh is well known to be a very nice city.
It seems he was either extremely unlucky or there's something special about him. And we should try and figure out which might be helpful.
Splendid. Okay. So, not trying to rush you, but it sounds very much like we're going to cut scenes to you catching the train. It's going to be a long journey from London to Edinburgh in this times. Steam train, though, all of the way, and it is first class, so you have a sleeper compartment. It's going to take probably 2 days realistically as the train makes its way up the east coast. Silver service, the finest food and drink. It's all very civilized. I mean, how do you all find this, your journey? Are you lapping it up or not enjoying the luxuries?
Victoria's very much at home here and looks very different to how she would when you first met her. So she's in her posh woman garb. She's wearing a wig. She looks quite significantly and substantially different. She's not wearing her mask, and
Perfect.
her valet dropped her at the station, so she has a good collection of trunks that were loaded onto the train.
I like the fact that you brought all your trunks with you as well. Perfect. How about you, Reg?
Reg is a mixture of things. Most of the time he's enjoying the luxury. However, on occasion he wanders off and starts to request checking of the tickets from other passengers or trying to serve some food. And just wandering back confused, occasionally escorted perhaps by some of the actual staff.
Is this because you have taken on the aspect of someone who once was, or is this a personality trait?
Edge likes to, when he's bored, just reach out and sense things, and as he does it in the different environments, he may take on certain traits that spirit relates to.
Lovely. And how about you, Albert? How are you spending the 2 days of luxury?
Enjoying the dessert menu. I think I spend it mostly in the other carriages, not set in the sleeping room. That'd be too obvious, too common. He walks up and down the train. He talks to people. He spends the evenings with a glass of brandy, and he's gotten a hold of. It's not quite a book yet. A friend of his has passed into his hand through other channels this draft text written by this fellow Stoker was his last name, and Albert's looking through and he is not impressed by this book. He finds it far too dry, even for his academic tendencies. And he will sit down and he will read for like pleasure. He'll read like chemistry textbooks that are like doorstops. So for him to find this draft book boring is saying something.
Perfect. So time passes. Nothing untoward happens, you'll be pleased to know.
No murders on the train on the way out.
No,
Oh,
because
you've missed the trick there.
I haven't. This is a one shot, and I am anticipating getting to the end to it tonight. If this wasn't a one shot, though, there would have been a multitude of characters for you to interact with, or with very fleshed out. And if this indeed is written up as an adventure, all of those personalities will be there for you to find out about. So buy it once it comes out. But in the meantime, let us get on with the one shot.
We're beta testers. I knew it.
Yeah. Oh, everybody, all of the time is a beta tester. Even with things that I've written, I'm constantly going over and improving them. So you arrive in Edinburgh, and it is an open ticket for your carriage. You could have perhaps spoken to Edgar about wanting to spend a couple of days in Edinburgh anyway, although it sounds like Victoria has easy enough disposable incomes to ensure that you can stay in one of the fine hotels.
My family have a
Yeah.
house up here. So.
Oh right, you even have a house up here, even better. Pro GM tip now is what you say is that's really good. Can you tell me what the house is like, please?
It's a very narrow and very damp and somewhat neglected piece of the estate. Most of the furniture is covered with dust cloths, and it's very cold, so it will take some warming up. So it depends how long we want to stay. We might be happier in a hotel, but if we wanted a base of operations, we could probably light some fires and get things a little bit more cozy. And the servants' quarters heat up easily enough.
So, I mean, is there any staff on retainer or no? So the house is deserted. I mean, the question is, Albert and Reg, would you prefer this or a hotel?
It depends on whether or not we're paying for the hotel.
I mean, you would if Victoria wasn't going to sort of do it themselves, then certainly the circle, the Candela Obscura, the society would facilitate your comfort.
To be fair, I mean, I'm imagining, like a terrace house or a townhouse, like they have in London.
Yeah.
And this is very similar to what Albert has at home. He has, a 2 up, 2 down. And so he's not like feeling like either like he's living in the lap of luxury nor that he's being hard done to. He's happy to go along with whatever happens. You suspect he might have a pudding stashed somewhere in his briefcase left over from the train, so he's a happy fellow.
Perfect. Okay, what about you, Reg? Hotel or going with the flow?
I think Reg would be quite happy for a house with more character, and perhaps a some point during our stay, he'll end up going up to Victoria, patting her on the cheek and saying, "You're all grown up, me dear," and then wandering off.
Not creepy at all.
No, not at all.
Perfect.
Sounds just like my gran.
Yeah. Perfect. So you've got this house, and I really like the scene in the fact of stoking the fire and just kind of trying
Victoria rolls her sleeves up. She's right in there. She's
Yeah, yeah.
doing this. And
to.
she hoisted her trunks all the way from the station as well. So there's a mismatch between the wealth and the reality.
And I kind of love the cinematics of dust sheets everywhere, and you probably leave some of those on because you don't need to empty the,
I think we just literally go to the servants' quarters and maybe the dining room to use the table.
And you've probably got gas lamps or candles, so it's not like the whole house is constantly lit up either, and you move them from one room to another, and it sets a very atmospheric sort of scene and a place for you to start work. And talking of starting work, no doubt you throw yourselves into it with vigor. So first and foremost, you said that you were interested in investigating about Cameron himself and about the area fundamentally. So you do find out with the land registry and births and deaths, you are someone of status. It doesn't really take a huge amount to find this kind of information out. It does take a degree of time though. So I'm going to ask for a group roll here, which means one of you will make a roll. The rest of you can choose to contribute to that or not. And I believe this probably would be a focus roll. Now it is up to you who wants to sort of make that.
Well, if we're talking research, then Albert's, probably the best one to make it.
Yep, well, that is absolutely fine. Now, the way that the rolls work is how many dots do you have in your research?
I have. This goes under intuition, correct?
Yeah, so
And
it's
focus. So I have 2 dots and a gilded dice, I believe.
Perfect. So just so that the audience knows, you're playing a scholar speciality professor, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you indeed do have 2 dots in focus, plus a gilded dice. You also have 4 drives in there as well. And because you're making the roll, you can choose to use one or any number of those drives on a one-to-one basis to increase your dice pool. If our 2 other protagonists want to assist you, if they have got drives in intuition, they can offer you just one single extra dice.
What, between us or each?
Each. Even if you've got 4 dots in intuition or drives in intuition, when you're assisting someone, you can only give one.
Max 1. Yeah.
So, does anybody want to contribute to this?
I would contribute.
Okay, so that's 1 dice. What about you, Reg?
Yeah, I think Reg will.
Okay, so this gives you a minimum of 4 dice now, Albert, and that one of those 4 dice is your gilded dice. You can choose to increase that more if you want to.
I think a dice pool of 4 is quite substantial for something like this. We are looking into what was his name? Cameron's family.
This is. I like to move things along, so this is your entire research rather than
excellent.
It's you as a group going around Edinburgh, research montage, finding information out. So it's important that you succeed. Now, a 1 to 3 is a failure. A 4 and a 5 is success, but with complications, and a 6 is a complete success. 2 6s is critical.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll take that dice pool for one of which is a gilded die, and we'll just go with that.
Perfect. 4 dice it is then. And this is how dice work. Now, there's a couple of things. One, that's a success with a complication, your 4, which is your gilded dice. If you choose that gilded dice, you could have, you could have re-got one of your intuition drives. Unfortunately, you didn't spend them, so you can't do that. You do have 1 resistance, I believe, in that, which means you could re-roll your dice, not the dice that were given to you, if you wanted to, or you could just take that 4.
I think at this stage in the game, just any success is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do find out some information. First and foremost, it looks very much like there is a register of a birth of Cameron. No register of death, though, which is maybe unusual after a week. Maybe it takes a little bit more time, but the death should be registered. So you're finding that unusual. Cameron Mitchell, relatively old. I'll let you do the maths, but he would be 56 today, basically.
I think it's his birthday.
Well, no, I don't mean 56, but he would have been 56 years old if he was still alive. So quite an old timer, really. You do find a marriage, and he is married to a lady who goes by the name Fiona. Obviously, Fiona Mitchell. She looks like she's still alive as well. There's no register of her death. Both residents of Bathgate, and there is an address, so you can note that down. You have that information. But there's an oddity in the fact that the death has not been recorded yet. In terms of other information, though, you managed to find out that coal mining sort of was stopped kind of maybe round about 30-40 years ago, and it's turned into more sort of shale and chemical works now. The pits are still around in Bathgate, but looking at the information you've got, they are now closed down. There seems, though, to be in its place the Bathgate Chemical Works, which kind of existed before to do with the mining as well, but has moved with the times. You find a little bit of information about that in the fact that the person that seems to be in charge of that is a non-Scot by the name of Addison Cable. Cable is spelled Kabble-E, just so you know. It might potentially pronounce Cabble, but it's Cable here.
And there's no reporting in the papers of any accidents or any strangeness up there?
You search the newspaper reports, and indeed there's a fair few reports, but they date back a fair amount of time, and I'm going to start giving you these reports one at a time. So I'm literally popping this into the chat so one of you can read it out. So hopefully that has come up in the One Shot Wednesdays channel. Who wants to go first with that one?
Look at this, gents. There's something here from the Scotsman, quite a few years ago, 1862. It says, Bathgate, destructive fire. Bathgate Chemical Works, occupied by Messrs. Meldrum and Company. It appears that about 8 o'clock some gas retorts have got overheated, burst, and that the flames spread rapidly over the paraffin sheds and other buildings, which, being full of inflammable materials, also caught fire. The fire raged till past midnight, notwithstanding that every exertion was made, and it's understood that it will take £1,000 to repair the damage and cover the loss sustained. The chemical works are not insured. Sounds like they've got some financial difficulties, perhaps, on the back of that. I don't know.
I mean, there is a newspaper and a date there as well.
Yeah.
The second sort of newspaper report is you see this one. It's a little more extensive, but someone else can read that out if you want. If you prefer me to do it, I'm more than happy to do it as well.
No, that's fine. I can read it. Just needed to change some settings. But look here, from 4 years after the fire, but still nearly 30 years ago. What do we have? Depression of trade. Oh no, surprise. Considerable surprise was created on this Saturday night in consequence of a rumor having been very extensively circulated, the effect that the Bathgate chemical or paraffin oil work, generally from 500 to 7, he trails off in German for a bit, was to be closed and that all hands had been paid off. Such, however, is not the case. The following particulars may be relied on. Talking. So many words to say so little. At the work, there is what is termed 60 set of retorts, each set consisting of nearly 40 men working, lots of men working, but it seems rumors of failed works that were not actually true.
Yeah, so make of that what you will, as Albert struggling a little bit with the Victorian English language. The final one is from a little sort of later, and this one is perhaps even more confusing to those of you who are unfamiliar with mining information. I'll read it out for the audience. This is entitled Evidence of Young's Paraffin Light and Mineral Oil Company Limited, Bathgate, County Linlithgow. Our works are situated on the Bog End Burn, employ 500 hands. The bed of the stream has not silted up. Our works are not affected by floods. The stream is not polluted by works above, but it is by mines. Obtain supply of water from our pits and consume yearly about 300 million gallons. Use yearly bituminous shale. 379 tons, sulfuric acid 4,790 tons, and caustic soda 766 tons. Produce sulfuric acid, 2,000 tons. Caustic soda, 150 tons. Naphtha, 150,000 gallons. Crude paraffin, 1,000 tons. Lubricating oil, 250 gallons. Illuminating oil, 1,500,000 gallons, and sulfate of ammonia, 130 tons. The whole of the waste liquid produced at our works is burned in our furnaces. Produce nearly 400 tons of shale refuse, which are deposited on our premises. Use steam, 120 nominal horsepower. Consume yearly 40,000 tons of coal, ashes from which are put on to a waste heap or used for repairing roads. The excrements of our work people are carted away by farmers and used as manure. Have no suggestions to offer as the best means of avoiding pollution in the future, or as to the conservatory of rivers and streams. Bongo. That was a report on the pollution of Scotch rivers to the Rivers Pollution Commissioners from the Falkirk Herald, 28th of August 1873. So, with all of these reports and your role, you can see that there is issues. They took a big hit with the fire. It has caused them quite possibly financial problems, as it looks like they perhaps were not insured. On top of that, it looks like they had to try and reduce their workforce, or perhaps skimping upon their necessary workers. And last but not least, certainly you, Albert, understanding all of that quantities, it looks like they are making a lot of product, but in doing so causing a substantial amount of pollution as well. All of these, though, are kind of strange. The reports are kind of hidden in periodicals. They're not main page. And this company is kind of the world leader in this production. This should kind of be first page press, not just in the Falkirk Herald. It should be across the front of the Times and the New York Times.
Is the Bathgate Chemical Company listed on the stock exchange?
No, not at the moment.
I do notice that the most recent article we find is 20 years ago at least, if not more. That's strange to find nothing more about the company since.
You think that, and you sort of look around, and it is strange, but you notice one or two other things, and it sounds very much like they've cleaned up their act, that everything has been put right. And then you, because of your background, Albert, begin to realise the numbers don't really add up. There's something very odd here.
Andy, I feel like this is probably the time to use this, because I don't know how it would play out in Bathgate. So I think Victoria knows a guy.
Yeah, I both love and hate this ability. It's like, oh yeah, I know a guy. Yeah, okay. How on earth do you know this person?
So let me give you a hook to work with and see if you like it.
I'm not. I really genuinely love this, but it is.
And
It's
also
one.
genuinely hate.
It's one of those. It's one of those skills that is both amazing and like, okay, how are we going to work this in? It puts the GM most
So
definitely.
I'm wondering about a financial angle. I'm wondering about in terms of my family wealth kind of do I have some kind of connection perhaps with Addison? Kind of some connection that would help us understand a little bit more about the financial workings or the
I don't
that
know.
kind of structure of the company. That would be what I would be thinking. There might be a link, but
I
welcome
mean,
any other thoughts.
do you want to know Addison, or do you want to have met him?
I think I'd
Or
like to know somebody who knows him.
okay. Well, it is pretty likely that Addison doesn't spend all of his time in Bathgate. He most likely, whilst it's a distance away, it's about 3 hours journey in carriage. That 3 hours is probably well worth being spent to spend time in Edinburgh rather than in Bathgate. So yeah, you do know a guy. Is it a guy or is it
Well, I
a
wonder. Yeah,
lady?
I wondered if he might have a contact who he likes to visit in Edinburgh.
Okay, can you define? You said contact in a
Courtesan.
courtesan. Okay, yeah. I
Yeah,
just want to make sure
somebody who might have pillow talk
that we are
insight into his dealings, perhaps.
okay. That sounds
I'm thinking escort more than
yeah,
prostitute. If that
yeah. Okay, there is someone that you know. She's a socialite, shall we say? She runs parties for the rich and the wealthy, uh, and her parties are very much the place to be seen at. Um, Her name is Opal Lowther, and you're very much aware of her. I'm very interested to know how you know. I'm just going to pop the name down there into the chat.
I perform at her parties sometimes, Andy, when I'm in
Okay,
Edinburgh.
okay. So how would you want to approach? I mean, she's a friend of yours, yes?
Yeah.
So
So
so approaching her is not going to be a difficulty.
no, that's and I do it discreetly. So this would be catsuit mode rather than um.
I love the way that you've got a
Well,
secret identity. This is,
yeah,
it fits in really nicely with Victorian pulp
yeah.
kind of things.
So
Uh,
try and find her. Maybe there's a gathering going on, and that night maybe show up and do an impromptu performance to
okay,
please the guests, and then see if I can get some time alone with her.
okay, yeah, absolutely. What are you doing with the two gentlemen that are with you?
Sentiment, do you fancy a bit of a? I think Reginald. I think you'd make a really good glamorous assistant, actually. If you wouldn't mind holding the cape for me, and when I give you the signal, if you just drop it, and perhaps Albert, you could be the plant in the audience for the trick when I read your mind.
Oh, I thought you were talking about shrubbery. Yes, of course. The stooge, the dupe, the fool,
Yeah. Oh.
the sucker, the loser, the trick.
No.
Well, okay,
No.
yes, sure,
No.
no problem.
Not the sucker. The one making fools of the rest of them.
Yeah, this I can do.
Okay, so you go to this party and it's behind closed doors and it's um, erotic, but it's not debauched. As you have said before, Albert, that there are many medications and the like that in this period are not illegal. You can become heavily addicted to them, and there is the use or even misuse of this. Individuals are taking part in whatever entertainments that their heart desires in this, and it is in the lap of luxury, no expense spared here. Of course, there is a performance put on. Do you have a stage name?
I do. I'm known as the Jeweled Rose, and
Jeweled
that's
Rose.
a
That is
reference to the mask and then the
perfect.
flower I wear on my lapel.
So you do your performance, and it is as magnificent as ever. Um, and unless you deliberately want to not succeed on the bits that you need to do to ensure that this performance happens, um, you you complete the scene wonderfully.
Andy, does this mean that I complete one of my illumination
Yeah, yeah,
keys?
absolutely. That
And can you
sounds.
remind us of what that does?
You're asking me rules questions.
I'm sorry, Kyle will
Uh,
know. Kyle knows everything about everything.
illumination keys. When you sort of do this, it moves towards, I think, the equivalent of experience. So I think between potentially recovering your resistances and the like. That sounds very vague. Um, it is something that really we should sort of look into for long-term
It's all right.
games. I'm very much enjoying Candela Obscura, so it's something. Um, I get the impression that Illuminated Worlds, which is technically the rule set, is designed for mini campaigns and for one shots. So I don't think there's a huge amount of experience that is gamed. What I've used illumination keys for in the past is it's a good roleplay prompt
Mhm.
because you kind of are filling a certain type of role, and you look at your illumination keys and you try to achieve those, and in achieving them you are performing the things the character that you are portraying seems to perform. I really like them. Mechanically, if I'm speaking truthfully, I have no idea the benefits of them, but you've
Why we love
anyway.
you, Andy.
Um, you're all going to die horribly anyway, so it makes no
Yeah, yeah.
difference.
Come on, can we just get to that?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I sometimes I speak out aloud. Anyway, you have your audience with your best friend that I didn't know was your best friend till 5 minutes ago, Opal. Um, I'm assuming because you brought Albert and Reg, you bring them into the conversation
I
as
would.
well,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
very
Just
cool.
go into but maybe a powder room at the
Well,
back.
she says if that is the thing that floats your boat, Victoria. But I have a splendid sitting room that is private as well.
Well, wait, let's use that then.
Um, so she says it's a delight to see you, and I don't believe I've had the pleasure of
This
meeting.
is Professor Prinz and Reginald Flock. They're
It is
companions from London.
Prinz, not Prince. I am not royalty. Albert's always having to correct people on this.
Well, uh, it is indeed
We're
a pleasure.
we're in Edinburgh on business, Opal. I wondered if you had any knowledge of Addison, if he's been to any of your parties. Addison Cabell of the Bathgate Chemical Works.
Oh, indeed. Yes, yes. He's
We're
quite a regular,
oh good.
even more so in recent times. You looking for some dirt upon him, or an introduction, or
Well, perhaps a bit of both. I mean, we're investigating some business out at the Chemical Works, and seems to be scant information in the public domain. And wondered
ah,
if he'd shared anything with you about goings-ons up there, or if you knew anything of his fortunes.
not so much goings on, but talk about a reversal of fortunes. It seems whatever they are doing, they are doing very well. It seems that he is now sort of royal appointed, both through the Queen and but also politically active. It's strange. He seems to think that what they are onto is going to change the fortunes of the empire.
Why is there nothing about it in the papers?
Well, it is all very hush hush. People have to sign a statement that they will not speak, and certainly over the last few years, he told me that to prevent too inquisitive people from learning or seeing too much of their methods and machinery used in making and refining the crude oil, he says, they have constructed a massive stone wall. He boasts that it is calculated to withstand the attack of artillery itself. It has been built all around the works, and there are only two heavy wooden gates, which really means the only way of ingress or egress, and they are constantly guarded. It seems that he has a large contingent of ex-military gentlemen that act as his security now. In many ways, society, both here in Edinburgh and I would imagine much closer, they speak of it as the secret oil works.
So how does he seem? What's his demeanour when he comes to visit? Have you noticed a change?
It is strange. It is strange. She pauses. And what I need off you, Victoria, because this is a strange thing either to the way that I run this system or just like in combat, where I was saying that I would want you as characters to roll dodge rather than me to roll an attack. I kind of want you to give me a roll to see if she has worked out the thing with him. So this isn't a contested roll against her. This is if you can kind of unpick the things that she's saying about him and understand it. Now your role is face, isn't it? Okay. So I think it makes sense that this is going to be either a sway or a read roll. Sway is slightly better for you, but read is probably more accurate. But you do have 3 drives of cunning, so you could add any of those. But before we come to this, again, very much like the montage, you would all be asking questions as well. So if any of you do have drives in cunning, you can offer Victoria 1 each if you want to.
Can I really go outside the box here? I have a thought. Now, bleed. Is this, and maybe I'm being inspired by other styles of game, is this the sort of thing like, would it be like a contamination?
Yeah, it's a supernatural contamination. I've got my own sort of styles upon it though, but from the very sort of rules of magic, bleed is a corruptive force left behind by powerful magic and supernatural things as far as I'm concerned. The bleed also radiates from phenomena that have made incursions into the world. So, but as stated previously, as part of my campaign world, there are certain phenomena, or rather entities, that are actively want bleed to corrupt the world. Does that help you at all, Albert?
I believe so. One of the pieces of equipment that's possible to take as a professor, as this specialty, is a bleed detector.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering if she's been in close contact with this Addison fella. Is it possible that if there's something at the chemical works that's supernatural, which could be suggested by the presence of this ghost, could that be wearing off on Addison and then wearing off on her? It's a tenuous connection at best, but I'm sort of wanting to see if I can sense any of that.
Yeah, that is a separate thing to what we're doing at the moment, though. So I'm more than happy for you to choose bleed detector as one of your items. And for you to, as I say, it's not a one-shot thing. You can use it throughout the rest of the game. But we will. Do you want to get an answer to that before we resolve the information that she is trying to give to Victoria?
I think the way Albert would be thinking about it is if he can get a sense of whether or not she's contaminated, would that allow Victoria to guide her questions?
Maybe or maybe not, but fundamentally it won't change. The aid action in this game is you giving a drive to
Yeah.
Victoria to increase her dice pool. Simply detecting the bleed is not going to add any more dice to resolving this roll.
All right, well, carry on then as you were.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is mute. That using the item will give you a direct answer without a roll, you know. So, Albert, did you want to contribute, or are you wanting to save that for something else?
I'll give her one drive. She loaned me one for the research. I'll give Victoria one.
Perfect. So reduce your drives in cunning. What about you, Reg?
Yes, I think Reg will give one.
No pressure
Okay.
on that.
So that increases it to 3. That is without
And
any
I'm
extra drive.
contributing my own extra drive, so I'm going to do 4.
Okay. Unfortunately, no gilded dice.
No gilded dice. Right, here we go. Nope, that did not do what it was supposed to do.
That's a 6, though.
But we'll just take that, shall we?
You rolled the dice. Victoria, it's like, I don't need those dice. I'll just roll the 1. Yes.
Forgot to hit add entire pile.
It's okay.
But, apart from that.
I'm not going to make you re-roll a 6.
Hang on, but I might get a double success.
So roll 3 more.
Yeah, so I'll roll 3 more.
Wow. I'll give you a success.
I'm sorry, Andy.
You rolled another 6.
I've rolled a double success. Yeah.
Well done. You've solved the mission.
Yep. So who is it? Who is it? Tell us who done it.
For watching. It was very good. So with a double 6, and again, this is you trying to question her in a way that she can give you the information that you want. What she tells you about Addison is, yes, his attitude is conflicted at best. He basically loves the publicity, or rather the fact that the very Queen of this British Empire is aware of him and aware of what he does, and same with the Prime Minister. With that, even though the thing is surrounded by secrecy, he's being very well looked after. But a man like Addison with all this power, I've got the impression that he is truly not in charge. There is a conflict there, and because of your 666, I've heard him talk about the head of security, the one that is sort of using all of these ex-military folk. And I really think that he seems to be pulling the strings. His name is Jimmy Kane. He does not sound a nice individual. He has never visited here, or I think he stays out in Bathgate. But everything that I sense from Addison is that he's a nasty piece of work, and there's something, there's an ulterior motive here.
Keep listening, Opal, and we'll be around. You can drop word by my family's house if you need just a
It's been
note under the door.
an absolute pleasure. But as I say, you got a critical success. He did say that there is weights and measures, there is a balance in all things, and he believes the success of the chemical works is indeed going to put the empire on the map of oil. But with weights and measures, he said something about a price being paid.
Yeah.
That is all that Opal can really sort of tell you.
I think Victoria will playfully smack Opal on the bum as a thank you and usher her back to entertain her guests while the rest of them party sit in the sitting room and discuss things. Or
yeah, I mean, there's plenty of wine, there's nice music going on, you can close the doors so the party is not going to observe any conversations that you're going to have. Is there anything that you want to discuss amongst yourselves for the moment, or we can close this scene down and decide what your next port of call is going to be?
what do you think, gentlemen?
Well, to put the great stone wall around this chemical works, and they speak of changing the empire. Empire. You know, that the domestic supply of oil would be a major asset, but this could be beyond us, even in the most mundane terms.
Sounds quite a bit bigger than I thought it was. I feel we need to get to Bathgate. I don't know. Is there any more to be done in Edinburgh?
Did you wish to take some readings, Albert?
Any reading I could perhaps, but any readings I would get here would be stronger there, and
I can show you to Opal's room where she would have entertained him.
No, I do not want to go poking amongst her laundry.
Undergarments.
Well, I'll happily do it if you lend me your detector.
Sure, you do know how this. Have I shown you how this thing works? And he goes to his briefcase and he pulls out what could only be described as well, it's something Victorian, and that's the best I can come up. There's I was going to say dials and knobs on it, but it's steampunk something, and he will spend a few minutes showing you how it works, and it looks a complicated piece of equipment even for him to operate, and he's fully familiar with it, probably because he's potentially built the thing, or at least had a lot of involvement in its construction.
Perfect. So
That's
you,
such a magnificent bleed detector, Albert.
yes.
Never ceases to amaze me.
Still think you need to steam it.
Okay, so you cross off one of your 3 gear things, and you now have chosen a bleed detector. Using this, as I say, there's no roll needed. There is a small residue of bleed, as perhaps predicted. There's no real sign of any real bleed going on here. So yes, you're assured that someone who has been at least carrying bleed upon them has come here. Now, whether that is Addison or someone else, it's difficult to tell. But you haven't wasted your detector. As I say, you can use it elsewhere. So with that, then, it sounds very much like you're probably going to rest up overnight, recover from the festivities at the party, and then
We obtained some of the lovely drugs.
Drugs. Just drugs.
well,
What
I
did you
think
get
I think
down?
Albert has a supply, doesn't he?
I was looking for more less medically inclined ones.
well, there's definitely sort of opium that is being taken here. You could get some of that.
I feel like Albert is very clearly your supplier, and that's how you know
yeah,
each other. But that's
quite,
just
quite,
me.
quite
That's my
possibly.
Walter
personal
White.
supplier, not to give to others.
Okay, because Victoria knows somebody, and it's her party. Absolutely, outside of your normal mundane equipment, you can have a small amount of opium that you've picked up at the party. I don't have
One of your 3 gear.
Okay, so
Fun.
the journey is uncomfortable. As soon as you leave Edinburgh, the road is fairly rough upon this carriage that you are transported in. Takes you approximately 3 hours. It's about 20 or so mile. What is your destination in Bathgate? Are you going to ask to be dropped off at the pub to drop your gear off, or did you want to visit a different location first?
I think it would be good to. Well, are we going to stay the night? That's the question. I guess we're heading out early.
Harkening back to Shadow Dark, I noticed that torches are burning in real life. So
Hmm?
perhaps we should just go straight to the chemical
Yeah.
works to observe, if nothing else, to have
Yeah.
a cursory survey of it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can do
Yeah.
that
Great.
because as you are heading into Bathgate, you pass through Bog Hill, and that is where the chemical works are. And there's not much to see really, other than a large stone wall. You can see that within the stone wall, there's a large area between the wall and the buildings, but you can see that there is cranes, large buildings, engineering, heavy machinery, large sort of chemical vats. The whole place is industrial, and there is that stench in the air of chemicals. As you get close by, the road goes past it because obviously they need to get deliveries into it. You can see that there is big wooden gates there. They look fully closed, and there is a sign over the top, curved over, saying Bathgate Chemical Works. But getting entry is going to be, well, not straightforward.
Hmm.
The other thing is that there's no indication that Callum was working for them. He
No.
said he died in a mine. And said he was a
The mines are
miner.
closed.
Hmm.
Strange. I mean, is there any kind of miners' exchange or any in town? Is there any kind of center?
Yeah, I mean, there's in as you sort of travel past and get the centre of this small sort of town really is indeed the pub. That is
It
where
is just the pub.
everybody seems to be sort of gathering.
Mhm.
At the moment, there's not very many people in there, but there are some people, and it's if you set off at 7 o'clock in the morning to try and get some time, you're
Mid-morning,
probably
yeah.
going to arrive around about 9 o'clock, giving you a full day.
Yeah.
Um,
To the pub then, 9 a.m.
I
No
mean,
better time.
one would assume that people in the pub won't be working at the chemical works. So you enter, and it is a smoke ridden sort of establishment. It's quiet. There are probably only a handful of individuals sitting down. Um, there are two people sort of clearing around the bar area though, and one of them sort of looks up. There's a man and a woman. The man has got massive hairy eyebrows and a big sort of forehead. It seems he's probably seen most of his life down a mine. He kind of strangers, are you the ones that have got the rooms then?
Yeah.
No, welcome, welcome. Do you need any help with the luggage?
No, I think we're traveling light.
I was going to say that depends on how much Victoria's brought. I
She's
can
left
imagine.
most of it in Edinburgh.
Oh, good.
Perhaps a drink then. Perhaps some breakfast.
Yeah, something to wash the dust of the road away. Wouldn't
Please.
go amiss.
My name is Billy Campbell. This is Una. Kind of points to the woman who's quite obviously, well, looks like his wife. She smiles. She's got ginger hair sort of tied up. Perhaps a little bit younger than him, but by not much. Uh, well, my dearies, sit down. I'll bring you some drink. Are you wanting milk, juice, or perhaps something a little stronger?
Tea?
Do you
Tea?
have coffee?
Nay,
Tea, then.
tea.
Albert is a fan of pudding as well. If you have any of that black pudding you do so well up here, I'm sure he'd very much be interested.
Ah. Well, I was nodding, so I'll just bring you some drinks. As you sit down, you see that one of the locals again is kind of nursing what appears to be some kind of ale, even though it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And he kind of looks at the three of you. Aye, What are you Sassenachs doing here? You come to hunt the haggis? It's hunting season.
We're after our friend Cameron.
As soon as you say that, the mood in the place suddenly changes. Victoria, the face, knowing how to do
Oh
things.
my god.
Fortunately, it's not in a aggressive way. You see emotion washes over them as they all sort of look down into their drinks. I mean, Cameron is a common name in Scotland, but here in Bathgate, there's certainly only one Cameron that's on these people's minds, and they. Oh,
Is he
sorry,
about?
you haven't heard.
What's happened?
I'm sorry, lass. This is Cameron Mitchell. Yes.
Hmm?
Uh,
Yes, Fiona.
yeah. I'm afraid he's passed. He's dead.
What?
Happened about a week ago. I'm
What?
sorry.
She'll look genuinely shocked. What happened?
Well, I don't know all of the ins and outs of it, but Cameron was a stickler for routine, even when he wasn't getting paid. And well, he used to sort of monitor the safety of the pit when we were working it. And so every year, just as a matter of course, he goes across to it, goes down and, checks it. I mean, you're probably not pit workers, but even though it's not being used, some of the struts could have rotted, causing subsidence or anything. And he likes to go down or like to go down and, well, do a safety check, sort of just every year. And that's what he was doing. And
Oh gosh.
we heard the steam whistle go off in the pit. I wasn't around, but by the time someone got to him, uh, they said he was in a terrible state. Uh, Terrible state. Dead. I'm sorry if he's a friend and this is too graphic.
Well, an acquaintance more than a friend, I suppose.
Well, it was Callum Brown that discovered the body.
Oh,
From
goodness.
what he described, it was his body was beset by large black blisters. He said he's never seen anything the like. Not just a few spots or pimples. Says he almost didn't recognise him.
Awful. Awful. Has he been buried?
Uh,
I'd like to pay my respects.
wow, I mean, and their faces kind of change again and they harden somewhat, not to you, but to the subject. That's where things have got a little strange. The police were called, and it seems that the Sassenach at the Bathgate Chemical Works had some sort of equipment to make sure he was not carrying a disease or something. So they offered their help to take the body back, and he's not been seen since. I mean, Fiona is distraught, and
Poor woman.
they are not being particularly helpful to her. I don't know anymore, but I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm
And
sorry for yours.
they kind of raise their drinks and sort of say to Callum,
She'll raise her teacup. Goodness me. Bad business. Where's Fiona keeping then? Is she
well, she's
at home?
at the moment, making the best of it. But
Okay.
I mean,
Do you
there's not
think
only,
she'd welcome a visitor? Or?
well, I mean, a friend of Callum's, yes. One
An
would assume.
acquaintance, but yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, all okay by me, he says.
What do you make of the chemical company?
Well, I don't like it. I mean, it's why we're not working. We haven't sold our souls to go and work there, but most of the town now are owned by them. Seems that the wages are good, but if you get a job there, you have to sign a piece of paper that none of us can read. But we're told that we're not allowed to talk about the chemical works, what goes on in there, or anything else. All sounds right shady to me.
If you could point me in the direction of somebody who might know a little bit more, might be willing to,
Well, you're
I
not
don't
going to
know,
be able to.
break that contract.
Best of luck with that. I mean, if it's not the money keeping them in line, they've got a load of thugs there.
Yeah.
And from whispers, I've heard that if you are found to be talking, they'll come and sort of visit you in the night, and it's not just you that'll get clobbered. It's like your family. It's not for me.
Yeah. Too risky, I see. Okay. Do they come and drink in here of an evening?
No, it's strange. The security keeps themselves to themselves. It's almost like a little mini army.
They all stay up at the compound up in
Yeah, I
Bog
tell you
Hill.
what, I've seen their boss, and
Is that
God,
Jimmy?
yeah, he's ugly looking.
Is he?
Yeah, he's not someone I'd want to meet in a dark alley or even a well-lit alley, if you get my meaning. I've been a miner myself. I've been in a few scrapes, you do when you're a lad. But he looks, I don't know. There aren't words to describe it.
And does he mostly stay in the compound, or do you ever see him out and about?
He shows his face occasionally, not to socialise though. It's almost as if he's making his presence known so everybody toes the company line.
Okay.
And it's strange when he comes down, it's almost as if he's hunting or stalking. There's just something about him.
That's most unpleasant. Well, thank you for your hospitality. I think unless either of my companions have any questions, we might want to be on our way. Maybe speak to Fiona, see if we can assist in any way. Poor woman. Would she receive a widow's pension? Would Cameron's?
Well, he wasn't employed by the chemical works. I say he went down pit. That's not their
So
territory.
he didn't. Did he work for anyone?
Well, there's lots of unemployment around here. We make ends meet by, bartering. Uh, I put my hand to being a handyman. Over there, he can kind of turn wood. You know, uh, one of us keeps livestock. Some of us have got veg garden, and that's
Yeah.
how we survive.
It's a tough life.
I mean, they're good to us here. We don't have much coin, but they let us have a beer or whatever.
Oh, well, thank you, and she'll slip a little bit of coin his way.
I don't want your charity.
Well, it's not charity. It's a thank you for the information. It's been helpful knowing what we're walking into with
I would
Fiona.
have told you anyway, but I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Keep behind the bar for us when we come back. We'll have a drink with you.
I look forward to that.
Do you know anything from any previous experiences or the books we've looked at the library of whether this hunting stalking behaviour sounds supernatural or just a particularly unpleasant gentleman?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, does it sound supernatural, or is he just a hulking individual? Now, if we wasn't playing Candela Obscura, I would say perhaps you would just put it down to the imaginations of a pit worker. But you are Candela Obscura, so even the scantest of words might trigger something to do this. So tell me what class you are. You are a weird, are you not?
Yes, I'm playing weird.
So I would like a focus roll off you.
Okay.
Now, obviously, I've gone through this number of times now, so if Albert or Victoria want to donate, they can do at the moment. You've got 2 dice. You have your drives as well.
You're pretty good on focus, aren't you?
Okay, I've got a gilded dice with 2 dots.
Is that what you want to do?
I'll put a drive in for it because again, it's like research and book work and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Knowledge.
The great thing about this game is that you can rationalize it however you want. It's a cooperative game, and these drives have been designed to be shared.
And I will spend an additional drive of my own for a
Perfect.
4 die.
Let us see if you can get a double 6. Oh
Yes,
dear.
he can.
Oh dear. Well, I like it. It makes my job a lot easier.
He could choose the gilded die, though.
Yes, you could actually. Technically speaking, you could choose the gilded die. I somehow believe you probably
How
not.
crazy are you, Kyle? How crazy are you?
I almost want to do it now. But no, let's progress. We got one to get through it tonight.
Okay. You've done it. The dice have spoken, and they take the tail and propel it directly forward. Things have just got really strange, really bad. Putting together the information that you have already discovered, the concept of perhaps pollution, pollution though that is an offset through the growth of a commodity so difficult to stop, almost like an addiction. Mortals, humanity, are creatures of addiction, and this is obviously a trait that is exploited by certain supernatural creatures. The idea of polluting and corrupting and tainting is not unusual to any of you. You are familiar with the bleed, but the pollution of the earth will weaken and corrupt and possibly cause bleed as well. That you already know, but a question mark comes to your mind, and then you realize it's not a question mark, it's a sigil, a symbol that is shaped like a question mark. The defiler, the entity that is seeking the corruption, the taint of the whole of the mortality. One of the entities, one of the supernatural creatures that it has tainted is a lycanthrope, a guru, not just an individual one, but a whole tribe of such creatures. And marring and matching that up, Bryan's face is beautiful. You begin to realize the concept of that loping walk, that hunting, is that this Jimmy Kane, could well actually be one of these supernatural creatures. Matching it up with the fact that he seemed to be pulling the strings, perhaps offering on one hand the oil, but on the other secretly disposing of all the chemical waste causing the corruption. And more importantly, this area north of Hadrian's Wall is well known to be, well, the hunting ground of these creatures.
Andy, on a completely out of character note, I have to say, Earth corrupting werewolves from Scotland. That's a deep cut into role playing game history. I'm impressed, man.
Thank you very much. Those of you who know. Those of you who don't know, you don't need to know, because you have it
We
all
never
there.
will.
But you got your critical, so I'm not going to hold back secrets. You come to that conclusion because you know that knowledge. The problem is how do you deal with this thing? Of course, as you how does this information manifest in your mind? You put all these pieces together.
I think as I'm half listening in on Victoria's conversation and half whispering for the whispers of the spirits, the words standing out and these symbols coming to mind, perhaps encouraging a few ghosts or entities to focus on what it was, and perhaps a flash of violence or a claw, and slowly putting together these pieces as the blood completely drains from the face. And I think I'll have that stronger drink now.
Okay. So, Victoria and Albert, you see Reg sort of have this episode, touch of the vapours perhaps, and then sort of shakingly sort of takes a stiff drink.
Victoria will just glance at him. Do you need a bit of air, Reg?
I think I need to get back home, but yes, let's...
Just
Uh,
step
get
outside.
some-
Perhaps a brisk walk to Fiona's place would do you some good.
So, on top of that, Reg, quite often there is balance in all things, and when this happens, it's a bit like being stung and then finding a dock leaf close to the nettles. It's not necessarily a resolution or an answer, but that shaft of light, that ray of hope. If this is what you believe it to be, you need to lean into the folklore of this area, this region, because you might be able to find that dock leaf, that one thing that might just tip the balance in your favour. That I cannot give you, though. That is for something for you to try and find out. All you need to do is one of you just roll some dice and get another double six, and we'll be off. I'll tell you that as well.
That's how we're going to finish this evening, yeah. That sounds like an Albert job to me, personally.
No pressure.
So we step outside
Yeah.
into
So
the streets.
we'll close that scene, and
Yeah.
I mean, the whole of this place has grown up, has developed because of the industry that's here. First the pits, then the chemical works. So there's not so much kind of sort of shops and the like. There's a small sort of street that has these, and the rest of it is packed in residential sort of area, and it's very basic as well, very dour. But you can easily find your way to Fiona's if you wish.
Is
Or you
everything
can,
okay, Reg? Because if you've seen a ghost, man.
Oh, ghosts are fine. It's... You know anything of the folklore of lycanthropes?
I mean, you would all know the basic myths. You know, it's as in like our world. You know about vampires and werewolves. Of course, we think they don't exist and they are just fairy tales. You know that they are perhaps oh so real.
Yes, it some sort of what was the paper? Some sort of I found it in the Candela archive. Some kind of disease that they transmit through the saliva.
Well, with my intuition of the spirits and the conversations, the threatening stalking works, tactics, I get the feeling we may very well be dealing with one.
Why the black boils on poor Cameron's body? I know of no association between lycanthropy and boils, do you?
Cannot recall any.
The presence of boils and lesions upon the body suggests some sort of contamination, chemical.
Don't
Oh,
forget, Cameron went down the mine.
Yeah.
And then came back infected.
And Albert has one of these light bulb moments. You can see it on his face. He goes, "Of course, they're taking out." Do you remember the newspaper article we saw in London? They're taking out tons and tons of chemistry and compounds and all that stuff. But such a small amount of waste being produced.
Oh, they
They're
said
throwing
they
it
burned
down the mine.
Oh. Oh. Well, do you think we should go and investigate into the mine?
Sounds potentially quite hazardous.
It does. Or if we know the source of the danger. I mean, I just don't quite understand the link between this lycanthrope and the mine. Do we think Jimmy would be loitering down there, or perhaps Cameron caught him dumping some waste or something?
So, Andy, just to be clear, are we all aware of this defiler aspect and the werewolves and such?
Have you explained it, Reg?
Yes, it's quite a long, sort of broken process as different bits and pieces come out in not a particularly clear order, but eventually I get it all out.
Yeah, so the information has been shared.
Albert gets a little notebook out, and he's kind of used to this sort of like, okay, well, Reg is babbling on, and I'm going to have to like note it all down and then interpret it and realign it and all that. Bring structure to it. And he seems to mull it over for a couple of minutes.
So what do you think, Albert?
I think that it is all a great conspiracy. We have this corrupting aspect, and they are for capitalism, das capital. They are taking the chemicals out of the ground, and they are selling it or dispensing with it, making money as a front. And then they are taking the waste, the poison, the toxins, and they are throwing them down the mine. And this Jimmy fellow, if he is the the alpha in charge of this operation, then surely if poor Cameron discovered their goings on at the pit, then disposing of him is, well, it's just good business.
As a chemist as well, it might not even have got to that if he discovered the chemical waste down the pit and encountered it. It could have just poisoned him as well. So it might
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
just been as easy as that. It seems that they did rapidly whip his body away as soon as they discovered it into the chemical works as well.
Would analysis of the waste material be possible, Albert? Do you have the equipment here to perform any experiments or draw any conclusions as to the nature of what's going on inside the factory?
Well, I mean, it would not be as good as if I were back at the Institute. But I could do a sort of cursory examination. But yeah, possibly. But whether we would gain anything, I mean, we might learn the nature of the toxin. But I feel as if we already have a great deal of information already, and it seems like the greater problem here is not so much, well, the chemicals, of course, but the lycanthropes are a bigger problem for us personally. I could perhaps, if I could get a hold of a telegraph, I could, but that would probably be back in Edinburgh. I could report back to the Institute and bring possibly bring that aspect to it in terms of. Then again, I mean, safety down mines is nothing compared to the pursuit of pounds and pence and profit. But things could be done, but it might take far too long for what we have time for.
I am also concerned if we go into the pit, it may be being more closely monitored and draw more attention to us than we're perhaps ready for at this point.
Yes. So we need some information about how to neutralize a lycanthrope. Some tool or weakness, or where could we find information about that? I wonder, would any old women in the village have any knowledge of
Albert
wives' tales?
cracks open his briefcase
Hmm?
and literally pulls out a vial of silver powder. Because silver nitrite is used in photography, and therefore it would be the sort of thing he would possibly carry around in his little collection.
Do you have a chemistry set, a portal chemistry set? Absolutely.
I do, in fact, because it's one of the pieces of equipment I took.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we deliver this to Jimmy? Sounds he rarely comes out.
I suspect if we went to the pit, we may get him coming out to speak with us. But
Draw
I
him.
perhaps would like to speak to some of the others, spend a night having beers and discussing folklore, and Perhaps find out, given how close they are to the woods where lycanthropes perhaps rumoured to be, maybe they have information that is beneficial to our circle.
I mean, if we are seeking this Jimmy gentleman, Albert turns and looks up the hill towards the chemical works. He will be in there, not down some grubby hole in the ground. The
Yes.
question is he the only one, or are there more of his decidedly furry nature?
From what we know, lycanthropy, I believe, they tend to act lupine and travel in packs. They're said to be able to convert others. There is no guarantee we are fighting one.
What is our end goal then? Do we simply
Run.
are we going to try to take what information we've gathered and report it to Candela and
No,
move on?
we need to contain this. Edgar asked us to contain this. And there's no time to go back to London and communicate. He's put his faith in us. We should be able to put a stop to this.
Albert chuckles to himself. It's on the verge of a sort of almost mad giggle you're more likely to expect from Reg. Mind that.
Maybe we could coat some of the bullets in my pistol with your silver. We have some way to tempt him out, to isolate him. We might be able to.
Perhaps we could bake some scones with opium in them. Offer him out for an afternoon tea.
That's brilliant, but I don't know what kind of tea lycanthropes like, Reginald.
Who could turn down a good scone with, of course, cream and jam?
Do you have access to a kitchen? Do you have a recipe?
Let me speak to a few people, and I'll just go vacantly off into space.
Okay, so
Albert gets his notebook out and starts furiously note-taking as Reg is spacing out. Victoria will reckon he's plotting, he's designing, he's thinking at 6,000 miles a minute, and he can't keep up with the rest of himself. So he's coming up with something.
perfect. So, have you decided perhaps not to go to Fiona's now? And
Yeah, I don't know what more she could kind of tell us. Presumption is that he's just gone down there and stumbled upon something. I suppose that could be untrue. And it might be that there was a wider period of suspicion around this contamination. But I don't know if that would change anything. I think we know who we need to confront, don't we? We know the source.
It sounds with two very good roles. Not only did you identify who really is in charge with Opal, but you've also kind of tried to work out what exactly it is and what's going on. But there is a final piece to this one that I hinted at before, and it sounds very much like Reg wants to pursue that.
Yeah.
So during the day, you begin to sort of speak to some of the locals about folklore. Innocuous, really, and most of them they can tell you some of the history. Some of them can tell you some of the ancient history, certainly hatred of the English, as is well known. But all fingers actually seem to point to one individual, someone called Esmeralda Wishborn, or Esme as she's known. an old woman that lives just on the outskirts of Bathgate in Hawthorne Cottage. It seems that she's well steeped in folklore, and this is Victorian times, so they're not going to call her a witch because that could lead to all sorts of unpleasantries. But she's known as a wise woman, and when a doctor cannot help certain ailments, she seems to have the answers. It seems like a very good call to uncover more information. Of course, the choice of going there is up to you.
Reg would certainly like to.
Okay, so you head off there. One presumes you are all going. And it's
Yeah.
about half a mile outside of Bathgate, so it's quite a walk as you start walking. You do have a choice at this point to turn around, go back and do it the following day. As I did say, it is late in the seasons and light is beginning to fall now. You'll certainly get there, but you'll be walking home in the dark. It's not far, it's a single road. You're not necessarily going to get lost, but that choice is yours.
Where do we happen to fall on the lunar cycle?
Uh,
Good question.
you just need to sort of look up, and quite simply, it's a full moon. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's a one shot.
We have to wait 2 weeks for the full moon, clearly. No. Well, then it will be brightly lit for when we walk back from Esme's cottage.
It would be, but it's Scotland and it's raining and it's cloudy.
Well, how the heck can we know it's a full moon then?
Because Reg knows these kind
He
of
just knows.
astral things, because that is what he does.
He's a loony, I know.
Excuse me, I'm not A, I am the.
The loony. The raving monster loony.
So the question is, continue, walk back in the dark, or leave it? I mean, from what you know about lycanthropes, if they want to get to
Andy, I think I can't hear you.
No, I can't either.
Andy, no one can hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
The lycanthrope got him.
We can't hear you. At least it's him this time and it's not me for once. Oh, Bryan, you haven't even dropped. Yeah,
I know. I was
exactly.
about to say my camera stayed the whole time. It's just blurry.
Still want to
Very
bake
Victorian. Should somebody
opium
send him a
strips.
message to let him know that we...
I'm taking over. Now it's my game.
Does that mean we win?
Or murdered.
Oh, poor Andy.
The primary power.
We can hear you.
Right.
Aha,
We can hear you.
excellent.
Yay.
And we are back. You all sounded like you were all on mute, and then I realised it was me.
It was you.
It was definitely me.
We said the werewolf got you.
What I was trying to explain to you is it doesn't matter whether you're behind stone walls or in the open. If a werewolf wants to get to you, they will get to you. I'm not sure that's giving you much comfort, but that is the reality. So, to the cottage or wait till the morning?
No, to the cottage, I think.
Okay, so you get to the cottage. So it's about half a mile out. It's no more than sort of 20 minutes walk down a country lane. Hawthorne Cottage, and it's kind of like worlds away from Bathgate. It's beautiful. The garden wild, but there's order there. It's very strange. It's not all withered. It's well kept. The cottage, not this dour grey property, but thatched, smoke coming out of the chimney, and a small path leading through the tangled gardens. You make your way to the door and you knock. The door opens and there is an elderly woman of an indeterminate sort of age. She has kind of whitish hair, kind of dishevelled but tied back, apron on, white sort of shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and she hello. 'Tis late of the hour. Is it? It is as importance of something happened. I'm Esme, by the way.
Apologies for disturbing you. Esme.
It is. I don't get many visitors now, and it is always nice to see new faces. How rude of me, it's raining. Do you wish to come in and warm yourself by the stove?
That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Esme.
Victoria will just hang back a little bit and just elbow Albert and just ask about the bleed detector as they make their way into the cottage.
Yes, it's in my briefcase as always. Why?
Might be useful.
Sure, why not? As we go into the cottage, I'm totally gonna metagame here. Does she have like cauldrons and herbs hanging up and all the sort of wise womany type stuff?
There's all sorts of what you would consider to be paganistic iconographies here. Absolutely. She doesn't have a cauldron, she has a stove. She has a large pots and pans and the like. She says, I've just been cooking some tatties and some neeps. Do you want some? I'm good with some salt.
I shall chase to the cut with you. I noticed your flower garden out here. Do you have any? He thinks for a minute. I'm gonna have to actually look it up on Wikipedia.
Wolfsbane.
Yes, that one. I was going to say Aconitum like Cotium, but yes.
No, I don't know what that one is, but I've got Wolfsbane.
Excellent.
She sort of sits down and pulls some kind of potatoes out and some turnips, and she puts a little aside for herself, and she says, help yourself, offering you wooden bowls to dip in if you want. She sprinkles some salt over it and throws some salt over her shoulder. She says, so, there's something about you. I think that we can perhaps talk openly with your asking about that particular herb. What is it that you need from me?
We seek to know the folklore around lycanthropy.
Oh, there is much folklore and much wisdom in studying it. I could school you for years, but I get the impression that time is limited. So do you wish to sort of reduce it
How
down?
do we stop a lycanthrope for good?
Uh, is this about the terrible place on the hill? The one
It
that
is.
despoils the land?
It is.
You know of the dangers then, but you are good-hearted to try and put an end to it.
This will spread if we don't.
It will indeed. It has started slight, but now it gets worse with every moment.
As this conversation is developing, Albert is going to apologize for being rude, but he's going to ask if he can make use of her pots and pans and cooking supplies and stove and stuff. For he has his own magics to do.
But you've come round to the lovely scones with opium.
No, actually, silver and wolfsbane and explosives. Stones. Ugh.
Indeed, help yourself, and there is no rudeness. The kettle begins to whistle, and she begins to make some herbal tea, offering you all some. She sips it herself. She says, it never always was like this. Even in my youth, there were the wolves that walk on two legs that protected this land, looked after it, spoke to the spirits, but the bad ones came, and black fur and degenerate, misformed and shaped. They hunted the others till none remained. But I used to go up to Carnpapel Hill, not far from here, and I used to dance and speak with the spirits. In their final days, they gave me something, saying that I would know the time. I think that is the time now. She sort of stands up and moves across and sort of opens up a kitchen drawer, and she pulls out a knife from it. The knife is old, very old, looking like it dates back 1,000, maybe 2,000 years. But you can see that sort of scratched upon it is symbols of the moon. And as you sort of look, you can kind of see that you're not sure, but the way that the etchings within the blade are as if a liquid could flow down it to sort of not just coat the blade, but cause the runes to be made more clear. She puts it down and says the spirit said this was a moon knife. It is something that if you are brave and strong enough, if you strike the creature, you will destroy it. Unfortunately, it has a single strike. it can only be used once. If you miss, you miss. You can still use it. What I mean is, once it has done its job, unfortunately, it will be just an antiquity then. As the spirits of the dancing wolves gave it to me, I give it to you now.
Albert's busy cooking, so
Yeah.
he won't. I also don't have enough physical stats to wield something like that.
It's only a blade. It's only a little knife.
Just a little moon knife.
Anybody can wield it.
Yes, but the wielding is one thing. It's hitting with it that's the problem.
I guess Reg will take it then.
Okay, so you take that. Okay. And she tells you of the times of the Fianna, of the Romans that came, the wall that was built, the Picts, and how history and legend and myth have all been blurred into one, and much of it is unknown now, lost. But most definitely it sounds that you kind of know this, that there is underneath the mundane, there is a supernatural world hidden from mortal eyes, and it sounds very much that Candela Obscura has only just started to scratch the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Tell me.
Andy, sorry, go on, Fliss.
No, I was just going to ask Esme if she knew anything about the habits of werewolves on a moonlit night.
They like to hunt. They definitely like to hunt, whether they need to or not. But it is a hunt. They don't want to just uncover a simple target. They want that danger, the thrill of the hunt. And of course, if this corruption has its way, if what they hunt causes more harm, more, to use the word bleed, then so the better for it. The night is early. Are you going to turn the hunter into the hunted?
If we kill the Alpha, will the pack disband?
It is interesting. Interesting. These creatures are often thought to be savage, mindless. No. They are creatures of intent. I believe the majority, if not all, of the pack have left this place, have headed to the new world, and they are trying to do perhaps the same as what is being done here. They are thinning their numbers but spreading themselves so the corruption can be felt across the globe.
Andy.
Yes.
With my playing a professor and they have a specialty of chemical concoction.
You do.
I know how to mix chemicals together to achieve particular effects. I would like to take this opportunity, and you're going to have to make a ruling here on how effective this is or how numerous it is. I want to combine the silver powder I have and any wolfsbane she might give me.
Yep.
I want to create like some sort of smoke or dust grenade, because it says I can make things that are explosive.
Oh, you need a smoke bomb. I have one. Albert.
There's a difference between a smoke bomb for magician's tricks and smoke and mirrors and distraction and
Something to poison someone.
yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy for you to
I'll
combine
pull one
it.
out. Yeah.
But you could use the smoke bomb, for instance, to create smoke, so you are less detectable as well.
Basically what I'm imagining is putting an explosive together with the silver powder in it, and I'm hoping that when it goes off in the face of my target, they inhale the silver.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about this is you do it. The uncertainty is that you will never know until you use it how good it is. Because what's the fun with you making the roll now knowing it's going to work or not going to work? It's much better when the thing is literally breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
So we'll make a roll. You've made it. Absolutely. You've got all of the gear and equipment and herbs and everything else. There's a good chance that, well, it should work.
This is why I like to hoard my resources in a game for when it really, really matters.
Absolutely. And there's no problem with that. Okay, so
I think we should go hunting, gentlemen.
it is the perfect time. The question is how are you going to bait it? How are you going to set the trap? You've got all the information now.
Like?
Well, it's not lycanthropes. This isn't a wild beast. This is someone that has purpose, which is to pollute and corrupt the land. And it's doing a very good job of it at the moment. It would like to probably hunt people that were attempting to stop that from happening.
I was thinking of walking past the chemical place loudly talking about going to the press about the mine.
We can do one better than that. And Albert pulls out a business card, which has his name and his title as a professor, and the seal of the Royal College of Mining, which, if he suggests he's coming here to do an inspection, or he's heard rumors of safety and environmental contamination, and threatens to shut the thing down, it's going to kick the hornet's nest, or the wolf's den.
Perhaps let them know that we're staying at the inn.
The only problem I can see with that is he has a Matilda of ex-military that could interfere.
But why would you let your lackeys do it when you can have the thrill of the hunt yourself?
You have the advantage here with it being a full moon, and you will incite him.
I think it's worth a shot.
The choosing of the location is important due to the fact that this hidden world, this sort of world of darkness that people cannot really truly see, they are unlikely to expose themselves in front. They're not going to walk into a busy pub, transform into a werewolf and attack you. If you really want to bait it and make it happen,
what about the mine?
I mean, it sounds perfect, the mine, due to the fact that it's a weak point. It's a point they don't want exposed or explored. It's a point that is abandoned and closed. It is dangerous, but if you truly want to bait this thing and make it feel as if it's got all of the cards up its very hairy sleeve, that sounds like the perfect location.
Then probably the thing to do would be to either in person or through a courier deliver my calling card to the chemical works and tell them that I'm going to be at the mine inspecting it, and await their representative, is how we'd phrase it. Now, that sort of literal business transaction, calling, whatever you will, would probably be more likely to be done during the day. So we sort of, I mean, to be fair, the moon's still full during the day, you just can't see it.
Night or day doesn't matter to these kind of creatures, especially if it's an abandoned area. So you're going to spend the rest of the night resting up, preparing, making your. Then you're going to send this bait. Perfect. So we'll bring a close to this scene. The message is sent. You have done as much preparations as you can. You head to the mine the following day, a reasonable time to sort of scout it out, perhaps get a little bit of an idea of the lay of the land. How are you going to position yourselves waiting for his arrival? Are you all going to be there in a group to meet him, or is one of you going to be sort of trying to?
Who's going to wield the knife? I mean, I could hide. I'm quite good at hiding. I could
I'm quite happy to give you the knife. I'm quite
ambush.
capable of creating a magical blade, or a blade that can do damage to the supernatural.
I could hide behind something or hide. How about this, Albert? I could hide in this old piece of mining equipment in this barrel. And if you were to perhaps engage him in conversation, and then Reg and I could ambush him when you say a key word or phrase.
When the explosives go off.
Ah, yes, that's a key word, isn't it? Boom.
I do love how, yet again, my friends, the big fat one ends up the bait.
You're clearly the tastiest.
I mean, it's really your massive intellect that they enjoy.
And the reality of the situation is you did send him a calling card from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I will position myself out in full view. Victoria said she had a handgun, so that's might be useful. And then Reg can create some sort of etheric knife, which I still need to do some lab study on that particular phenomena.
Okay. So the problem with this is if you are going to try and hide, you are going to have to give me hide rolls.
Yep.
If you don't want to hide, but if you fail on your hide roll, it will cause suspicions with him. So you have to bear that in mind. And once you make the roll, you won't know your character whether you're successful or not. So you just have to, unfortunately, stick with it. And I will remind you, rolling a 6. I know it seems to be very easy for you all, but it's technically not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe supposedly it's a 1 in 6 chance, although the way you've been rolling tonight, it's more like a 5 in a 6
All
chance.
right. Well, I'm gonna certainly choose to hide.
So Victoria, you're going to choose to do that. How many dice have you got in your hide?
So I've got 2, and I was going to
Perfect.
use my remaining 2 drives from cunning.
Sounds good to me.
So for a total of 4.
Reg would like to help.
Okay.
You want to help me, or you need to hide as well?
So no, what we'll see, it's a cooperative game. If Reg wants to aid you, you're playing sardines in effect, and if you have a success, you both are hidden.
Okay.
So,
all right. So this would be 5, is that right?
It sounds like it's 5 dice if Reg is giving you one.
Okay, I'm not getting... It's making it hard for me to add a 5th one. But what I'll do is I'll roll these 5, and then we'll just do another one.
Well, you've only got 5 dice anyway, haven't you?
Oh, sorry, I'll do these 4, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And then
So
I'll do my
that looks
last
like you've
one.
got a 5 as the highest so far.
Fine, I will go ahead and roll that.
Mm-hmm.
This one. Okay.
So a 5 is
Yeah.
is a success, but with
I think we'll take that.
complication. Perfect. So you hunker down. Albert, you go about looking as if you are inspecting, walking around and sort of looking. It is not long that you need to wait as this individual begins to approach, and he's big. He's about 6'5" and well built as well. Large black beard. But he's got what appears to be a scar that has split the hair somewhat. There's something about his eyes. They seem to be a little too far apart. He's got a mop of unkempt black hair and his suit is ill-fitting. His nose looks like it has been broken a number of times and never seemingly to be reset. And you think he's missing an ear. Yeah, it's just unpleasant as he sort of moves forward. He's got a piece of cardboard, which is your business card. And he says, Prinz, is that you?
I start reciting the nursery rhyme Little Red Riding Hood to him in German.
Okay. He just flicks the card at you and says, this is none of your business. If you want to know what's good for you, leave this place.
I will carry on reciting to him in German, as if there's some language barrier here. That I'm just a stupid foreigner. I don't know what he's talking about.
Leave. You can write English, so can you not speak it?
English, yes. I reach in my pocket and I go, here, English, yes, for you, English. And I hand him the grenade and I take the pin with me.
Okay. What kind of role? I'm going to say you can use your in effect creation role, because this isn't you're throwing it or timing it or dexterity. This is you constructing this. So it makes sense for this to be perhaps a focus or something like that. But if you wish to choose something else, you
No,
can.
I'll definitely use my focus.
It's a good one for you, but this is you inspecting, analysing, and remembering how to concoct this thing. So I think this is. But I'm going to be mean. I'm going to say the other two can't add to this because basically they didn't say that they were doing it, but you can spend.
we're hidden in a barrel.
Well, it was also kind of back. You were speaking to Esme and getting the knife and everything else, but you can spend as many drives as you wish on this roll.
Well, I've got 3 drives left, and gosh darn it seems like the sort of time to use it. So I'm going to roll, 5 dice on this?
You've got 2. If you're adding 3, you've got 5, and one of those 5 will be the gilded dice as well.
Excellent. Let's roll that up.
I'm going to break the dice roller.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good. So that's a 6. Brilliant. So it's a complete success. The grenade, which isn't explosive fragmentation, but will create a cloud around him of this combination of all things that are abhorrent to their kind. He kind of howls in pain, and you can see that it's almost as if acid is burning away at his clothes and his flesh as bone is beginning to be exposed. At the same point, though, he begins to transform, and the sight is disturbing. I would like you all to take 1 scar to the brain, please. It
A
is,
wound
yeah,
or
a wound. So you just not a
a
scar,
mark.
sorry, a
Mark.
mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sight of this transformation is terrifying. You've definitely hurt him, and he is trying to transform, but the transformation is going to be slowed down because of the effect of what you have done as well. But it is just not necessarily. It's not necessarily horrific. It's just, oh my god, this thing is going to kill us. It's like, this is terrifying. It's all of your worst nightmares realized. If you don't put this thing down, it's just going to rip you apart. Okay, so there's no real initiatives here. That has happened. I'm going to allow Victoria and Reg to do something sort of simultaneously. It's not going to have an action this turn due to the fact that it's trying to transform, and this chemical cloud of badness is really hurting it. So, who would like to go first out of Victoria and Reg? It's simultaneous, so it matters not.
Go, Reg, go.
Okay, Reg, what are you going to do?
Reg is going to pull out the blade out of his pocket and gently cut his palm open and start rubbing the similar runes to that on the lunar knife onto it, empowering the ghost blade ability.
Yeah. So you're playing a weird, as we said, and your speciality is occult, and this is ghost blade. You can attune a ritual knife to yourself. You coat it in your blood. Take a body mark. So you received a body mark. But it can wound magical beings and strike at invisible or ethereal foes. So it seems that you didn't need this very special one. Of course, you need to apply it to him.
Can I attempt that, or would it be my sort of my action, so to speak, to activate
Well,
it?
we'll move because combat isn't really designed to be multiple rounds here. What I'll say is you can strike at him, but that is because he has been delayed thanks to the grenade. So in effect, you're taking 2 actions in 1. So yeah, you need to strike at him. So this is going to be nerve strike.
Fail.
Okay, I was going to say if anybody wants to lend you anything, but you rapidly charge in and try to slice at him. Your ghost blade is still activated, but I'm going to say cut into him, but it is just a nick. You do notice that blood does come out of it, but it's not a deep wound, and you begin to see it almost sealing up as you do it. Victoria, what would you like to do?
So I'm hoping that you're going to steer this in a direction, Andy. So Victoria would pop up out of the barrel.
Yep.
Pop the top off, and
It's a wonderful
as
sight.
part of one of her acts, she does like a knife throwing act, where you get the knives kind of all around them. So she wants to attempt that on the lycanthrope.
Wow, you're
So
super.
chucking the moon blade.
Yeah, you're super brave. You're literally going to throw the MacGuffin. I love it. No, I genuinely think it's brilliant. Okay, but you are right. You do knife throwing as part of your act. It sounds perfect. Okay, so one would say this is going to be control.
I was glad you said that.
Well, you are driving, shooting, or finessing, really. This is what you've said. I don't think, have you you haven't got anything that is going to help you with your speciality. So you only have one in that though, but you do have 3 drives, I believe,
I
if you've not
do,
spent
yes,
any.
I do. I do.
Obviously, if you have any drives in nerve, you can donate one.
I am
I'll offer
pumping.
one up.
Will you? Okay. Okay. Again, I'm not quite sure how to get an extra die into the pile on this roller.
So the way you do it is, I think you just double click on the
Double click on it.
so
No, that just rolled one.
so
But
you rolled a 4.
that's the extra one, and let's add in all the rest.
Okay. So your highest is a 5. So you hit, but with a partial success,
I will take that.
which is good. I'm going to say that it's a success. You hit your target. It does severe damage to him, but the partial successes, it's not enough to finish him off. But he is growling, trying to transform. This thing is like a poisonous thorn in him at the moment. And we move to Albert. You have delayed his actions with this cloud of wolfsbane and silver. What are you going to do? Definitely badly wounded, but the fates can be fickle. It could easily turn against you any moment. What are you going to do?
This is not generally Albert's area of expertise. He is a thinker. He studies. He plans.
Mhm.
But sometimes it is necessary to take the wolf by the horn. No, that doesn't work. Victoria has delivered the knife right to him. So, sort of stealing his nerve, rather than running away from the monster, he's going to run at it. I'm going to try and use my control to my sort of manual dexterity or whatever to grab the knife that's stuck in the
Mhm.
thing and just do more damage to him. Sort of
Okay.
a more rather than sort of a forceful blow, more sort of aiming for like a weak point or a vein or something really
Yeah.
hurt it in a single precise shot.
So, I mean, I'm going to put this out there. It sounds very much like you're focusing, not controlling. You're inspecting, looking for a weak point to deliver this blade to. But it is up to you.
I will. Well, I will. Yeah, I'll use focus because it gets me an extra dice.
Well, no, I mean, it's. I don't think it's about that. It's about using the skills you've got, and you described it beautifully. That you were looking for a weak point. You were analysing this creature, looking at the flesh beginning to dissolve, and you want to strike at that. So I honestly don't think it's metagaming. I think it's using the skills that your character has, and
Yeah,
I love it.
I can see that. I can see it's more of a. It is more of a looking at it and studying the creature as opposed to just the
Brute
precision of the
force.
knife. Might it be if I
Yeah, yeah. And that's the
citizen
beauty of
character.
this game. So before you roll, though, don't forget you have intuitions. If anybody can donate, you've got it. Speak up before the dice roll is made.
I
Yeah,
will.
I'll give at least one, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got an extra 2 to that focus, giving you 4. If you have any intuitions left, you can spend them.
I spent all my
Yeah.
drives on the grenade, so this will
Yeah.
be 4 dice. One
4
of
dice.
them, the
Gilded.
yeah.
Perfect.
And
Okay, you've got a 6.
it's on the gilded.
And it's on the
Oh,
gilded. So yes, a success without anything. You've got everything in place now. I'm going to say, sort of simultaneously, I'm going to give Reg a chance to come in with your Ghost Blade as well. So how do you want to do that, Reg? As you now have this occult blade glowing with power, desperate to seek out a supernatural creature to slay.
I think that but initially rushed in a bit of a panic after seeing this horrifying transformation. But Albert's more calm, logical, aiming for weak spots, take a moment to reassess and
I think
try and aim for
Victoria's
the same sort
screaming
of
at
spot.
you as well. Pull yourself together, Reg! Do something!
And I will try and aim for the same spot on the opposite side as Albert got.
Okay, and what skill are you choosing to use? Are you looking for a weak point? Are you trying to use
Focus, I suppose.
focus? Okay, yeah.
Spent 3. Okay, so I will spend my drives. So that is 2, 3. I suppose I should ask if anybody is helping before I do it, but I don't
Yeah.
think anybody has any points.
I think the points have perhaps all been spent, but
What is this?
this is
Intuition.
focus, so it's any if you've got
Focus,
anything
yeah.
spare in
I've got
intuition.
nothing to spare. Wait, no, I've got
Oh,
one
I
left
have one. I've got one. Yeah.
Okay,
because I
Go.
just got one back.
you
So,
can have
yeah.
you can have another 2.
Okay.
That's my literal last drive.
Okay. Well,
So it
this
comes
is
down to the bone.
dice.
Very nice. Okay, so double 6s in effect. A 6 off Albert and a 6 off Reg. How do you want to finish this creature off? So, I mean, Victoria throws the knife skillfully, like the many times she's done in her act before. It strikes it, kind of causing it to turn somewhat. It roars in agony, and as it roars in agony, Albert, you pull it out and you slash at a very weak point. Reg, you do the opposite, slashing at a weak point on the opposite side of it. Driving this blade in deep into the body, clipping essential organs, whatever makes these creatures tick, and you pierce them. You see it unable to maintain its bestial form as it collapses to the ground. This pile of ripped flesh and bones, unable to reform, regenerate, as it is truly put to a decent end. Well done. So, success, great success as we are beginning to come to the end of our story now. You have done what you really have been sent to do. You have dealt with the supernatural threat here. This supernatural threat was the one that was manipulating and causing the direction of the pollution to be flushed into the abandoned mines. With his removal, with words spoken through the steps of authority, you know that the shale works will continue, the chemical works will continue, but with the pollution being properly and responsibly disposed of, thus ending the terrible corruption of the earth itself.
Can we try to contain the bleed that exists already to a degree?
Absolutely. Sort of in the post-credit scenes, you do that. There is a clear up. You have to remember that the scant few people like yourselves that understand the real nature of this threat. To the majority, it is just pollution, which is a bad thing, right? But not truly understanding the real harm it could possibly do. And you do indeed clean up, not necessarily yourselves, but you get other members of Candela Obscura who are less field agents and more operatives with making sure these sites are cleansed. And it is indeed a very good job, well done. And the poor spirit of Cameron Mitchell now can finally be put to rest as well. Well done, everybody. You have succeeded, and it has been a one-shot. I hope. Yeah.
Just because you mentioned post-credit scenes,
Yep.
I would like to think that Albert, through his connections through the mining college and all that sort of bureaucracy and stuff, gets a chance to get into Jimmy's office and rifles through his papers, because Esmeralda had spoken about these wolves spreading throughout the world and spreading into the New World, into America.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to think that somewhere there are threads of narrative and evidence that can be passed on to other circles in other places to sort of continue that hunt.
I mean, I don't know what you mean. I mean, you do find a business card, and it just has a symbol, a name upon it, which is Pentex. But beyond that, nothing else.
Oh, Andy.
I know, I'm a terrible
Right.
person.
Red finally gets
Excellent.
to make some.
So, thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed that experience. If you're watching, obviously, and you stayed with us, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. I've had a blast with all the little bit of Easter eggs and nods to other game systems. As always, as I like to do, let's go around the table and get people's opinion on A, the game, B, the system, and just generally what we've been doing tonight. We'll start with you, Bryan, as your face on camera a couple of times was a picture.
I like Candela. It's quite a simplified system. It's not too overly complicated, which can be a refreshing change. It lets you focus on the story and the narrative. And yeah, I love some Easter eggs from games I used to play 15 years ago. So it's just lovely to see that sort of sprinkled in there and go, ooh, so now that exists. It's canon. It's in the Andyverse.
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan, leaning into these World of Darkness games as well. They are very good. The system is still very good. And Werewolf, I believe, is coming out very, very soon. I think it's probably hit Kickstarter and coming out. I shall be getting myself a copy as well. But sometimes it's quite nice to sort of take people by surprise. It's like we're playing a game. Where's this going? Oh, they meant. Oh dear. And hopefully I caught you out there until the reveal. You did very well tonight with your double sixes. I'm not the kind of GM that's going to go, I don't care that you've rolled that. I'm a great believer the dice help tell a story. So you uncovered quite a lot of information quite rapidly. As I say, it'd be really interesting to see, another group play this and not actually realise that perhaps the head of security is a werewolf, and how they have to deal with that then. So yeah, no, it's been great fun, and I thought you would get some of those gentle nods and hints, which is why I put them in tonight's game. Move across to Kyle.
As usual, I'm sure most of those went straight over my head, but
hopefully it didn't matter, because what is important to me is that story, you don't need to know the other parts of the story, and hopefully it sparks a little bit of interest for you to go and sort of, just put Pentex into Google and I'm sure you'll find some information about it.
I already have a Google search of it up.
There we go, you see. So a big nod, as I say, to the fantastic World of Darkness. We've got to credit them with some awesome games and settings over the ages. Sorry, Kyle, you were saying.
It was very enjoyable, as you said earlier. It seems to take a lot of inspiration from Blades in the Dark, but seems distinct enough, and I really quite like the abilities, particularly the drives of actually being able to get it back versus sort of the stress mechanic of.
Yeah,
Loads.
absolutely. And one thing we didn't we didn't cover, which I perhaps should have done, is you have got resistances as well, which are re-rolls. So, for instance, when you missed with your one, you could have technically. Well, I'm not sure if you could because I don't know whether you've got resistance in that. But if you had resistance, you could have done a re-roll with that as well. But yeah, big nod to Blades in the Dark as well. We love that. But I think this game is different enough. I think there's a lot of us say nuances, and I can't wait for the entire system to come out to expand upon that as well. Move to Fliss.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. It's a very narrative forward system, and I think it embraces the style that you love and we love of those highs and lows. It kind of highlights and emphasizes those, and I think there's something about the skills that kind of adds to that as well.
Yeah.
With that I know a guy thing, yeah, it's a bit of a cop out, but actually you're only going to use that once, and it is going to be epic, and it felt quite epic. It felt quite superhero-y, which was without us duking it out with the bad guys over and over. Yeah, really liked it.
I generally like the skill. I think if you are either a new GM or new to the system and you haven't kind of read the characters, it can catch you sort of unawares when they go, yeah, GM, I've got this skill. I know a guy, so once per assignment, I can just know someone that can tell me all this information. And it's we're in the middle of the Sahara Desert. How's that going to work? I mean,
I tried to be sensible about
no,
that
I mean
because
you are, and all of my players, all of my community have been. But I think it's one of those things that I kind of want to get right as a GM because, like you said, it is very special, and you kind of want to make it personable, and you want to make it one of those standout moments. But there'll probably be more guidance in it in the sort of full rules to kind of help GMs out with those ideas. But you
it
were
didn't feel game breaking though,
no,
which is good.
you were the perfect player who went, I know a guy, I'm going to do it in Edinburgh rather than trying to shoehorn, because you could have done it in Bathgate. You could have.
I don't think Victoria knows a guy in
Yeah,
Bathgate.
exactly. So I think it worked perfectly well, and I love it because the problem with investigation detective based games is that if the players don't get the information, nothing
Doesn't go
happens.
anywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't want that to happen in a game. So to have abilities and skills that give you the information you need makes the game flow, and I kind of love that.
No, I think it worked well.
So that is the game. Thank you very much, players. Thank you very much for watching.
Andy.
Hope everybody enjoyed it. And now we are really going to be twisting the narrative in 2 weeks' time if everything happens well, because it seems that maybe this Pentex, or just basically humanity in itself, has, well, not really resolved their problems as we delve deep into a dystopian society. We'll be playing Candela Obscura, but we were setting it in a near future dystopian cyberpunk setting. So that's going to be exciting. So it will be Candela Obscura, still be playing Circles, but you'll be dealing with all the problems of corruption and humanity with AIs and cyberware and everything else. What could possibly go wrong? I can't wait. I'm very, very excited and looking into that. So without further ado, everybody's been up late. Thank you for staying with us. If you did like it, give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Really appreciate it. If you didn't, still give us a like and subscribe, and we'll try harder next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Catch you very, very soon.